me ask you a question. Have you ever seen this man? I'm not even gonna beat around the bush for this one. Everyone who is anyone has played Undertale, or has at least heard of it. I mean, the actual previous Pope, rest in peace, played the game. What's your excuse? Everyone knows what Undertale is, and why it's so important to the medium of gaming at large. But for the two of you watching right now that somehow know nothing about this game, I'll give a quick recap. Undertale is an incredible indie RPG made entirely by one guy, Toby Fox. The game follows a fallen human who, after finding themselves in the underground, ends up meeting various monsters of all walks of life who have been subjected to live underground after the war against humans hundreds of years prior. The player discovers that, for the monsters to escape the underground, they need the power of 7 human souls, and at this point, they already have 6. Some monsters want to hunt you down to escape, while others just want to be your friend. However, where the game gets interesting is its unique take on combat, as by defeating any monster, you will actually be killing that character, changing the course of the story and how other characters view you because of what you've done. So it's up to you who should be spared and who must be eliminated. Will you defend yourself from the dozens of monsters hellbent on killing you? Will you talk your way out of every conflict? Or will you show absolutely no mercy, killing everyone in your path regardless of their intentions, and regardless of their pleas for mercy? The choice is yours, and the game changes drastically depending on every little decision you make in combat. Not just that, but the game remembers everything you've done, even between playthroughs. The game will know exactly what you did in the past. It knows if you reset over a decision, it knows if you regret your choices, and it makes sure you know what you've done. Needless to say, Undertale took the world by storm, and the game catapulted Toby Fox into stardom, giving him the resources and community he needed to become a world-renowned game developer. And trust me, I was not immune to the Undertale craze that swept the internet in the late 2010s. In fact, I actually got the game exactly a year after it launched for my birthday, because, fun fact, Undertale and I share a birthday. In fact, September 15th of this year will mark both Undertale's 10th anniversary and my 18th birthday. So that's pretty cool. But we're not talking about Undertale today. No, instead, we'll be talking about the far more recent and highly renowned Deltarune. Deltarune initially released back in 2018, with just the first part of the game available, Chapter 1. Chapter 2 released 3 years later in 2021, and as of June of this year, Deltarune has finally received its 3rd and 4th chapters, marking the game halfway complete according to Toby. And despite the fact that the game is not finished yet, I've decided that I really want to talk about the game because, I mean, it's just incredible already, what can I say? So, without any further delay, let's discuss one of the greatest games in recent memory. Considering Chapter 1 has been out for almost 7 years now, my god, has it really been that long? I'd like to keep this section brief, as chances are most people watching this video are going to be quite familiar with this part of the game. However, I still want to discuss the start of the story, as it'll be important to understand for later parts of the game I'd like to draw more attention to. So, the game starts with a fairly simple character creator. What's immediately important to note here is how this establishing scene immediately incorporates the game's larger theme of choices and free will. Something that I'll be bringing up later. But once the player is finished creating a vessel, the game immediately pulls the rug out from under us by discarding the creation, exclaiming that nobody can choose who they are in this world, before introducing us to the character we'll be playing as. This idea of the player's choices not mattering will be a big deal in Chapter 1, which is important to note because of just how much of a reversal this is from the identity of Undertale. What we learn in this opening are a few things. For one, in this universe, both humans and monsters live on the surface, because no, this is not a sequel to Undertale. It is instead, as Toby calls it, Undertale's parallel story. Also, Chris seems to be the only human in town. We also get to see quite a few characters from Undertale around the town, which, you know, is cool. After going to school, the player meets Susie, who is implied to be the school bully. Chris and Susie are sent out of class to get chalk, Susie eats the chalk, Chris almost f***ing dies, and now the game can truly start. This is the Dark World. It's not explained exactly what it is yet, but we'll get to that later. Susie and Chris arrive in the Dark World and meet Ralsei, the best character of all time in anything ever, by the way, and it's here that the main exposition of the story is established. Once upon a time, a legend was whispered among shadows. It was a legend of hope. It was a legend of dreams. It was a legend of light. It was a legend of dark. This is the legend of Deltarune. For millennia, light and dark have lived in balance, bringing peace to the world. But if this harmony were to shatter, a terrible calamity would occur. The sky will run black with terror, and the land will crack with fear. Then, her heart pounding, the earth will draw her final breath. Only then, shining with hope, 3 heroes appear at World's Edge. A human, a monster, and a prince from the dark. Only they can seal the fountains and banish the angels' heaven. Only then will balance be restored and the world saved from destruction. Today, the Fountain of Darkness, the geyser that gives this land form, stands tall at the center of the kingdom. But recently, another fountain has appeared on the horizon, and with it, the balance of light and dark begins to shift. After hearing about the prophecy and meeting Lancer for the first time, the party teams up to seal the Dark Fountain on the horizon. One of the great things about this part of the game is the fact that the player has full control over Chris and Ralsei's actions, but not Susie's actions, because she's still unwilling to listen to Chris at this point in the story. I've always loved the concept of characters' actions being independent of the player because they are their own person, so naturally they're going to make their own decisions. Although Susie's decision to fight everything in her path isn't exactly what we're looking for. So it creates this interesting dichotomy where if you want to spare enemies, you need to warn them about Susie's attack. It's no longer just your choice. You also have to account for the choices of your allies. Yet again, delving deeper into this game's themes of free will and how much our own decisions really matter. Eventually, the party comes to a standstill, with Ralsei trying to convince Susie to act like a hero. So-called freethinkers when Lancer is on screen, every one of the main party members has an explicit connection to these themes of free will and decisions, but at this beginning part of the story, Susie is focused on the most, which I think is smart considering her characterization at the start of the chapter. You know, we need to establish some character development for her so she can continue to have a voice in the story. It's because of this that I think her betrayal and inevitable reconciliation are key parts to Deltarune as an experience. It's also because of this that Susie's friendship and bond with Lancer is able to grow, making Lancer's actions hurt the party even more. Susie finally opened up to someone, and they hurt her again. Because after the party reunites and Lancer realizes what Susie and the others plan to do, he locks them up, not as betrayal, but to protect them. Lancer doesn't want to see his new friends get hurt because he, like Susie, has rarely let anyone open up to him. This all, of course, leads to the climax of the first chapter, in which the group faces the King of the Dark World, Lancer's dad, who he was afraid to stand up to. And it's interesting because by this point in the game, Susie had done so much to avoid peaceful resolutions, but now, against someone hell-bent on defeating them, she tries to reason with him, because she doesn't want to upset her new friends. Chapter 1 is simple, and has been talked about to death, but I think its simplicity is brilliant looking back after all these years. especially with the hindsight of later chapters. Speaking of later chapters, let's go ahead and move on to our first main discussion point. Chapter 2. What the fuck? They were just a little bit hungry, you know? Nothing to be concerned about. Chapter 2 starts off with a bang. Chris and Susie make their way back to the closet to check and see if the Dark World is still there, or if everything was just a dream. After being quickly stopped by Noelle's not-so-subtle suggestion to study with Susie later, the two heroes enter the Dark World again to find just the castle town from the previous day. Rousey tells Chris to go collect all the random junk from the unused classroom in the Light World and bring it back to the Dark World. When doing so, the castle town springs to life with all the characters we befriended in Chapter 1. More on this little tidbit later. Anyways, the two Lightners make their way back to the library at the request of Noelle, but when the two attempt to enter the computer lab, so, yeah, another dark fountain has popped up, this time with Noelle and Birdley a part of the mix. They meet the villain of this chapter, Queen. After the trio reunites, Susie and Rousey go to explore the Dark World while Chris teams up with Noelle to play through the game normally, and not emotionally abuse her and completely ruin her as a person. That's definitely not what we're gonna do. Yeah, so it's at this point in the game that the player can opt into taking the weird route, where you essentially manipulate Noelle into killing everything in her path, including one of her best friends. Arguably far worse than Undertale's worst routes. For the sake of not making this video too crazy long, I won't be talking about the weird route, but hey, if this video does well enough and you guys want to hear my thoughts on it, I would be down to make a separate video about the weird route. Anyways, when playing through the game normally, Chris and Noelle eventually meet up with Birdley before the whole group reunites. We learn that Rousey taught Susie a bit of healing magic, and it's at this point the chapter really opens up. When we arrive at Queen's castle, we're able to fight this chapter's secret boss, as well as Queen herself, to finish off the chapter. This is also where Queen's motivations are revealed. Turns out, the Dark Fountains have been created by someone called the Roaring Knight. Queen wants the Knight to continue to make Dark Worlds, and hearing this, Susie initially agrees that this wouldn't be a bad thing until... Hearing about the roaring, Chris and Susie decide to seal the fountain and return to the light world. Noelle and Birdie awaken, thinking the whole situation was a dream. Now, this is the end of the chapter for the most part, but there is one more little thing. Okay, let's talk about this. This is the scene that finally lets the player know one of the most important parts of the story of Deltarune. The player is not playing as Chris. The player is controlling Chris. This is the player, Chris's soul. While Chris as a person, in-universe, is not actively making the decisions that we make. And to take back control, they literally rip their soul out of their body and lock us in the cabinet so they can go do something without us knowing. It's unclear at this point what Chris's motives are. However, I think this character choice brings up yet another extremely interesting aspect of the themes of this story, especially in the context of free will. I mean, who is really in control here? Are we in control? Or is Chris in control? Does anything we do matter? How does Chris feel about everything we've done? It raises so many questions, but the biggest one, I think, is, does any of it really matter? Deltarune is about free will and how our decisions impact the world around us. But it's also about the inverse. This idea that we lack free will, that we're all sent down a path decided for us, a prophecy we can never see, and that no matter what we do, what decisions we make, nothing will ever change. Anyways, Toriel sees that her tires are slashed and decides to ask Susie to sleep over, being concerned about whoever might be outside. In case it wasn't obvious, yeah, it was Chris who did that. Anyways, the gang goes to sleep, and that's the end of chapter 2. Nah, I'm just kidding. Chris makes another dark fountain. Wait, is Chris the knight? No. But people thought they were for like 3 years. Yeah, so chapter 3 and 4 were very recently released, so of course, spoilers beyond this point for the rest of the game. If you haven't played it and don't want to be spoiled, you should probably click off now. Anywho, chapter 3 starts out with Chris and Susie already in the Dark World. Excited for another adventure, the two set off, meeting Ralsei soon after. Susie asks Ralsei to leave the Dark World with the two of them, suggesting they could all go to the festival in a few days. Ralsei says he'd like to, but explains that he can't leave the Dark World, and we finally learn the true nature of these fountains. You see, Susie, you and Chris live in the light world. A place where everything is as you see. That is, as long as there's light. You see, when it gets dark, things become more indistinct. A chair can look like a monster. A poster can look like it's moving. Your eyes can't see the truth anymore. And when the light runs out, you see nothing. Of course, your mind can't make anything of nothing. But what if it became even darker? Darker than dark. What if we could take away the light that wasn't there? Until we reached another side. If that were to happen, you could start to see things again. And hear them. And feel them. That is the Dark World, Susie. An alternate view of reality through the lens of shadow. In other words, an illusion. The dark fountains change everything into a fantasy. In the light world, in reality, Lancer is just an average playing card. Queen is just a laptop. In other words, when the lights come back on, this world is no longer real. The places you go, the people you meet, none of them are... Even I, the one telling you this, I too am...
But Rousey, how can you say you're not real? I can see you, I can feel you, I can hear you.
So, yes, Dark Worlds are based on this idea that when surrounded by darkness, your eyes try to fill in the gaps by making you essentially imagine things. An interesting take, but it's more interesting that essentially all of these characters who are Darkners, they're not real. And yet they have feelings too. They still live, they still laugh, they still love. So do Darkners have free will? Do their choices matter? Well, there's not too much time to think about that because we are quickly interrupted by... You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. So yeah, our brand new threat for this chapter is Tenna, a character based off of the TV in Chris's house. He immediately ropes us into a game show, which Susie is not too happy about, considering she was just essentially told that nothing matters and her friends are fake. But Rousey suggests the group participate, because maybe if they can't watch TV together, maybe they could be on it? So the game show starts. The whole thing is this great spoof on classic Zelda gameplay with Deltarune battle mechanics, and other fun stuff along the way. But the real fun stuff comes about in the physical challenge, a minigame based off of some sort of TV genre, this time being a cooking show minigame. It's fun enough, but pretty hard to master, especially on the first go. I needed to replay the chapter to actually S-rank this minigame, a stark contrast from the next physical challenge. Now, after the first board, we're put into this little hub area where we can receive rewards based on our performance in the previous section. This is also where we can start down a certain alternative path to obtain an item called the Shadow Mantle. More on that later. The second board is a bit more of the same, albeit maybe just with some more character development. I especially like when Rousey gets to lead the group for a little bit. We get to see a side of him we haven't really seen up to this point. But after the board is over, the next physical challenge starts off with a bang. This time being a rhythm game where the gang each takes part in a band to perform the song Raise Up Your Bat. Now, what's really interesting about this song is that when you're playing the minigame, lyrics for the song actually appear on the bottom like karaoke, and in universe, Rousey is the one singing the song. But when listening to the song in-game, no actual lyrics can be heard. So, the community has taken it upon themselves to cover the song with the lyrics the game shows. So, seeing this, I've been faced with a tough decision. I could either be lame and have zero whimsy in my soul, or... When the demon heart is crying and the blood is gushing bright, raise up your bat for the burning fight. When your hope is slowly dying and your future's lost its rights, raise up your bat and face the fright. Let's knock 'em dead into the night. Come follow me into the dark with your heart as the arc which shall shine you the way. Because I'm with you in the dark with your heart as my mark which shall guide you the way. Come follow me into the dark with your heart as the arc which shall shine you the way. Because I'm with you in the dark with your heart as my mark which shall guide you the way. When the demon heart is crying and the blood is gushing bright, raise up your bat for the burning fight. When your hope is slowly dying and your future's lost its rights, raise up your bat and face the fright. Let's knock 'em dead into the night. Or I could do that. After completing the second physical challenge, the game show has finally ended. Time to get to the rest of the chapter. Or not. Yup, let's get ready for round 3, I suppose. Soon after being returned to the hub, Susie overhears Tenna's conversation with some unknown person. Being suspicious of this, the group decides to sneak out and investigate the rest of the studio. They eventually run into Toriel, who is trapped in a gotcha ball. When Tenna starts to walk into the room, the group hides behind her. When the group inevitably escapes from Tenna again, they make their way back to Toriel, where they can finally face the boss of the chapter. Tenna's boss fight is incredibly fun, combining all previous minigames throughout the chapter. When we defeat him, he breaks down, explaining that all he wanted to do was entertain Chris and their family. But he was cast aside. Watched less and less, more and more people started to disappear. All he wanted was to be watched again, like before.
Mr. Tenna, I understand how you feel. To want to be important, to be useful. Perhaps you might not be watched much anymore, but that doesn't make you a failure, Tenna. You've brought smiles, light into Lightner's lives, to Chris's family and friends for so long. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. If that ever comes to an end, Darkners all become obsolete eventually. But we aren't real, Tenna. We shouldn't make Lightners worry about what happens to us. It'd just make them unhappy, wouldn't it? Hey, you want to know what I think? Susie? I think you don't have to take being thrown away. Let me tell you, I've never really been able to make friends. I was always the scary girl, the bad kid. The only times anyone ever got close to me were as a joke. And even if I did start to make a real friend, I'd always end up moving away. When I moved here, I thought it would be the same thing. I felt like you. I felt like a broken toy no one wanted. Chris's mom saw me, Toriel, saw me sitting on the bench in the graveyard, crying. She asked me what was wrong and told me everything was going to be okay. Took me to the diner, bought me a hot chocolate, talked to me, told me I'd make friends. That gave me hope, even just a little. And recently, that hope's been growing. Because now I have friends. Real friends. Friends I want to keep. Chris, Ralsei, Lancer, Toriel, too. Even though I thought I was broken, I just needed to find the right people, you know? So, don't worry, dude. Someone out there wants you. Promise.
Chris, you'll help me ask around town, right? Someone's gotta want a TV. You'll help me? Susie, You're incredible! You're amazing! No, you're marvelous! I feel electric! I feel like $1,000,000! This must be what hope feels like! We're inventing a Hall of Fame just for you! But you gotta give back to Toriel. She's got people that need her, too. Susie. Hear that, Ralsei? No one's gonna get thrown away. Not you, not me, not Chris. Got it? Got it, Susie. I love this scene, because it goes so far beyond just being about the purpose of household objects. Instead, it delves into this idea of Ralsei's worldview, and the concept of having a purpose. To me, Ralsei represents a people pleaser. Someone who never thinks about themselves, so much so that it causes their own suffering. And Susie's line here sticks with me. She wants Ralsei to be his own person because she sees him as a person, not something to fulfill a purpose. After that incredible scene, the group is finally given Toriel and is about to seal the fountain when... The Roaring Knight, the main villain of the whole game. Now, what's cool about this boss fight is that it's essentially impossible. You're supposed to lose. In fact, when you do, the game simply goes on. However, you can win. Remember that item I was talking about earlier? The Shadow Mantle? Well, with that item, you actually are able to beat the knight, or rather, you won't get one shot and you'll actually stand a chance. Technically, if you're just that good at the game, you don't actually have to have the mantle to win, but you probably should if you want any sort of leeway. Whether you win or lose, the knight is able to fly off into the light world, kidnapping Undyne in the process and hiding off in the bunker at the bottom of town. When waking up the next morning, Susie and Chris go to church with Toriel and discuss what to do about the bunker situation. They decide that the best way to find the code to the bunker would be to get it from the mayor, Noelle's mom. So they ask Noelle if they could come over later. Okay, but can we all just agree that they're so cute together? Like, oh my god, guys, love truly does win. After going to Noelle's mansion and exploring a bit, we actually are able to find part of the code. So, yeah, it's at this point in the game that it's made quite clear that Chris doesn't want us to get into the bunker. They seem to be working with the knight in some way, but it's unclear exactly how. Anyways, we have to traverse through the house as the untethered soul, trying to make our way back to the code. The dialogue we get to see between Susie and Noelle is so cute here, it's genuinely heartwarming. Chris and Susie make their way back to church to see Toriel before discovering that the knight has made yet another dark world. When entering, they quickly meet up with Ralsei, who is acting really odd. We don't have too much time to think about that though, as we quickly run into an old man who the group believes to be a Lightner. One thing leads to another, and the group finds the prophecy along the walls. Ralsei explains that the prophecy is absolute, that it explains everything that will happen. The old man breaks one of the prophecies on the wall, leading them down an alternate path. Something something free will, something something metaphor. The group makes their way to the old man's study, and it's at this point that we can backtrack to access a secret boss fight with him. Much easier than the knight, but it's still a challenge nonetheless. But it's the end of the boss fight that sticks with me the most. Stories can be retold, they can be changed. That's what I believe. The words on a wall called you a hero. Whatever you end up being, I'm sure it'll be tremendous. After this, the party goes forward to see more prophecies, as Susie starts to doubt Ralsei. They eventually seal the fountain. Susie then discovers in the light world that there is yet another fountain that lies behind a locked door in the church. The two then discover the old man's ashes in the pastor's office, discovering that he wasn't a Lightner at all. Rather, he was a Darkner based off of an object in the real world, that being the hammer inside the jar. Susie decides to reopen the dark fountain to talk to him again, and perhaps get a bit more intel on how to open the door. Chris, knowing how to open a dark fountain, hands a knife to Susie for her to do the deed, maybe cluing her into Chris's true intentions. Although nothing is made of this yet. Susie opens the fountain and discovers a prophecy about her, saying that she will find love. Susie comes across who she thinks is the old man, and the two dodges attacks while trying to reason with him until Ralsei appears and defeats him. Susie. That wasn't the old man. Huh? One of the statues in his shape from his study. It must have begun moving when you made this dark world. A statue? Then the old man. He's not in this world, sadly. Darkners patterned after the memory of a loved one tend to only appear in very specific darkness. Even if we tried to bring him to Castletown, he... Then why didn't you say anything earlier? First the roaring thing, then you not being real. And now this? What's wrong with you? If you know something, why don't you just... tell us! I'm sorry, I know so many things, I know so many things, I don't know how to say them. I don't want to say them to worry you two, so I end up not saying anything. What do you mean you know so many things? About the rules of this world, about the prophecy, about what the prophecy says will happen. I didn't ask to know, but I do.
I'm sorry if it creeps you out. I'm sorry if I don't tell you everything. It's just sometimes knowing things, it hurts. And if anyone's going to hurt, let it just be me, okay? Ralse, is that why you've been acting so weird today? Why you keep... I've just been trying to stay ahead of you two. So you don't have to see it, so you won't... Because it would... See what? The ending of the prophecy. What, that last prophecy thing? Susie, you didn't... No, I mean, we almost did. Please, let me go ahead of you from now on, please. I'll do every area, I'll do all the work. You two could just hang out and have fun. I could do all the puzzles, I could... Hey, look, it's okay, man. That last prophecy thing, I don't need to see it. So, if it helps, whenever you gotta, you can go ahead alone. But everything else, we're doing it together, as a team. And nothing's gonna change that. Nothing. Whether you like it or not, toothpaste boy. The group makes up and seals the fountain. The fire hydrant tells them the code to get past the door, and so we enter the third and final fountain of the chapter. Ralse meets up with us again, and we make our way towards the night. After climbing up a giant tower with the help of all the darkners we've met in the church, we brave the attacks of the night head on. The words on a wall called you a hero. Whatever you end up being, I'm sure it'll be tremendous. Hear that, Ralse? No one's gonna get thrown away. Not you, not me, not Chris. The boss of the chapter is a Titan. After the knight is able to awaken one from a dark fountain, we are able to defeat it and seal it away with the help of the old man. But afterwards... Chris, you're alright. I can't believe it. It actually worked. We actually defeated a Titan. If we can do that, then... Chris? Where's Susie? Susie, wait! No. Susie, stop! Susie, don't look! Susie, I'm sorry, I can... Susie, I'm sorry. Shut up. The hell are you apologizing for? You're worried about that? Seriously?
This stupid prophecy. Like something like that would happen. I wouldn't let it happen. Chris wouldn't let it happen. And obviously you wouldn't let it happen. So, why wouldn't you laugh? It's just stupid. So stop crying, okay? Everything's gonna be alright. Hey, Chris. Let's go seal the fountain, okay? Susie. She's a really, really nice person, Chris. How can she be so kind? How? I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sorry I didn't say the whole prophecy at first. I thought if I said something different, if we did something different, if we were just kind enough, perhaps by the time we got here it would change. But no matter what we do, our fate is already decided. Sorry, don't look at me. I don't mean to always make everything about me. I'm sorry, Everything's okay, Chris. Look, I'm smiling. And that's where the story of Deltarune ends for now. Apparently, this is only the halfway point, but from what we have currently, I can say with confidence that this is one of my favorite games of all time. Deltarune is a story about the nature of choices, and how we can affect the world around us. And I think what it's trying to say is that our choices do matter. More than anything else, no matter how much we may feel like they have no effect, they do. We may feel controlled by some prophecy, or some outside force, but that's not true. Nothing is set in stone until it happens, and no one is powerless to affect their own life. Even when it seems like you're actively working against yourself. With enough determination, anything is possible. And the places that you know seem like fantasy. There's a light inside your soul that's still shining in the cold, with the truth, the promise in our hearts. Don't forget, I'm with you in the dark.